Ho, ho, ho. It's Saturday, December 21st. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. It was not the night before Christmas, but it's getting close. And it's time for the weekly Ask Me Anything live stream. Before we get to the questions, and I see they are already waiting for me and piling up. And I'm glad to see you all talking amongst yourselves already. That's going to be very helpful because there's already more questions that I can answer. So I will be picking and choosing. Footballguys.com. That's the website you want to go to. Tons of great content there, including my latest articles, the in and out, my polarizing players piece with Gary Davenport, my fantasy notebook earlier in this week, tons of rankings, all kinds of other good stuff. So thanks for coming here today. And also on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. for my On the Hot Seat live streams. Last week we had one of our new football guys, Jeff Blaylock, on. He was fantastic. There will not be a Christmas Eve of live stream. I can't get anyone to come on with me, and I don't think any of you are going to come listen. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, everybody. Love Sig and Cecil. So do I. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Andrea. Nice to see you. Everyone likes to hack. Good morning, everybody. Santa Bob is in the house. This is true. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, so you see everything I do, everything Sig and Cecil do. To take the hat off, it was just for a hello. It's very hot. No, it's not bad. Good morning. Santa Claus is not my part-time job, but I am willing to entertain offers. Good morning, Dame. Merry Christmas to you. Appreciate, again, everyone coming. We've got games today. The Chiefs and Texans, the Steelers and Ravens. This is correct. Scampers loves the shirt, so don't we all? Got the tree going behind me, got the lights on, got everything going. It's like totally Christmas here at the football diehards headquarters. And I am Football Diehard on the Twitter. If you know me, I find all my work at footballguys.com. And again, great content there. Tons of like rankings. We're going to get into some of the stuff today. I had some interesting conversations this morning about some tough decisions. What kind of guitars? We've got a Jackson Dinky, and we've got an old Yamaha Strat with a Floyd Rose tremolo. This is I love that guitar. I like the Jackson is a screamer, right? Love that Jackson, but man, that it's like I got that thing like about 30 years ago. It's fantastic. Anyway, don't get me started on that. Good morning, Albert. Thanks for coming. Appreciate everyone showing up once again. You can hear me on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Also, in addition to myself on Football Guys, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 10 p.m. to midnight. I'm also on tonight, Saturday, every Saturday. Oh, that's going to change. Saturdays are going to change because NFL Radio plays the games. We usually simulcast on those channels. Tonight, 8 to 11. I think there'll be some time changes in coming weeks to that. But we'll continue on through January with these, I think, Monday, Wednesday, for the most part. There'll be some hits and misses as we get into the postseason, but for the most part, we'll be on our regular times throughout January. Also, every morning, we're finishing up the daily podcast, the Daily Update podcast, which you hear every morning with myself and Mike Dempsey. It's available at 5:30 every day. A little 10-minute news update kind of thing. That will continue through the end of week 17, and then we'll kind of figure out some other things on that as well going forward. That won't not meant to be a year round. I'm not doing that 5 days a week year round. So there you have that. Zare, Rachel, good to see everyone. Thanks for everyone for coming. I hope you saw me with the hat, not putting it back on. It was fantastic. Love the hat. Love the Santa hat. Have some antlers too. Couldn't decide between the two. Everyone needs help. Like these are serious, all the fun and games we're going to have. We are going to have some fun and games. I mentioned Rachel and I were having a conversation this morning that I want to discuss a little bit. Tough decisions about. I'm going to get back to this one. I'm going to get back to this. Don't worry. There are some that I've highlighted that I really want to get to because they make some bigger points and some tough issues as we have going to this games. First, before we get into all that, I want to go through some of the newsy things as I usually do. I appreciate y'all chatting amongst yourselves out there and deciding some of the lineup questions because, again, I'm not getting to all of them. If I'm not getting to yours, go to my rankings. Footballguys.com. Rankings are available. We have the consensus rankings. You can dial down to my rankings, however you like to do it. I like to look at the projections a lot, compare them to the rankings. The raw projections by our projections team are fantastic. Mauriel Tremblay, Jason Wood, Bob Henry, Justin Freeman, Sigmund Bloom have been doing these for many years. They do a great job. And then, kind of as I think that's all the starting point for all our rankings. And and it's great, but it leaves some tough decisions that we're going to talk about. Rachel and I were having this discussion, as I mentioned this morning, about one in particular, but there are others that I see in the chat, and I'm going to try and highlight those. And good to see you, John. But the news stuff, like we got the game today. It's going to start out with the Chiefs playing the Houston Texans. And Patrick Mahomes, just saw him walking into this stadium, didn't even see a limp. This guy is a superhuman. He's superhuman in NFL terms. Like, he's not the best fantasy quarterback, people. You're not going to sell me otherwise. Like, there was a time when he was throwing 50 touchdowns a year that you wanted to play him every damn week. I get it. He's not that guy anymore because the offense has evolved. No offense to him. He's still a great NFL quarterback. All that stuff is true. But he is going to be playing on a high ankle sprain. The Chiefs are have activated Marquise Brown. I saw questions about him. I don't know what I expect, that coming right out of the chute. I don't know that I need to play that, but we'll discuss for sure. John Mechie and Kate Stover are out for the Texans. And I think this game's going to be decided by the pass rush, right? Mahomes struggles under pressure, and the Texans the defensive line is third in pressure rate. They're second in sacks. They have 45 sacks. So that's going to be, especially with dealing with a mild high ankle sprain, that's going to be interesting to see how he can manage that. And then the other side, the same thing, right? CJ Stroud has struggled, and the Chiefs pass rush ramped up last week. I think against the Browns, they had 5 sacks, and their pressure rate was super high when they didn't blitz. So Texans have given up 46 sacks, 5th most in the league. So that might be the turning point here. Still playing Nico Collins with reckless abandon. I don't know about Joe Mixon. Don't know. I mean, I'm playing him, but I have concerns. I have concerns about Isaiah Pacheco too. Where's that workload? It's not coming. It's a 50-50 split with Kareem Hunt. No. A little later game, Steelers, George Pickens is out. So Pat Freiermuth is fine. I don't know what you're doing with the rest of them. Calvin Austin III, maybe. Rashad Bateman is questionable on the other side of the ball. He's got a foot issue. He was in a boot at various times this week. Seems truly dicey. Nelson Aguilar's been ruled out. Deontay Johnson has been released, and Adam Schefter's reporting he will be picked up Monday. The Chiefs are a possibility, the Chargers. So we'll see what that goes. Sounds like he might be a handful. And this is going to be a tough one. Lamar Jackson has struggled, and so I'm surprised. I've had a lot on the radio, Lamar Jackson versus whoever questions. I'm sure we're going to get some Jaden Daniels versus whoever. Adam Cawthorn has Chiefs fatigue. That's understandable. 10 Neck needs some Nico love. I think Nico's going to work. I think Nico's happened. And yes, I do have information. He's not yet cleared. We'll talk about that in a second. Let me get to the injuries so he can answer those questions. And good morning. Thank you for coming, 10 Neck. Appreciate you. So let's run through the injuries not related to today. The quarterback situations, most of the guys who were on the injury report resolved. Baker Mayfield's off the injury report. Geno Smith's off the injury report. Aiden O'Connell. Okay. It's the Jags, though. We got changes in starters for the Giants. Drew Lock will start. The Titans, Mason Rudolph will start. For the Browns, Dorian Thompson-Robinson will start. It's not that great. Not that great, Dorian. Oh, yeah, Michael Penix Jr. This is the one we've all been waiting for, right? Kirk Cousins has obviously been struggling the last 5 weeks. It's been horrible. He's drugged down the values of his associated pieces. A lot of chatter this morning that the Falcons will let go of Kirk Cousins after the season to avoid the guaranteed money going forward. Pro Football Talk kind of countered that, saying that decision is not made yet, but seems likely either way. And, we could have a Russell Wilson type situation where somebody is letting the Atlanta Falcons pay them for their quarterback, right? We'll see. Very interesting. Rudolph, just in time for Christmas. Mason Rudolph will to guide my team tonight. Ho, ho, ho. So like a lot of quarterback changes. We'll talk about those. If you want to go in depth on those, my fantasy notebook this week is free of charge as always on Football Guys, and it goes in depth in all those changes, or at least as in-depth as you want to go on Dorian Thompson-Robinson and some of the others. Yes, it's Jerome Ford week, you would think. And maybe a David Njoku week. If you go read my in and out this week, just posted, be an interesting one. Here we go. The Christmas puns are coming out. Keep them coming, folks. The red zone reindeer Steelers. Love it. The running back situations. There are interesting things there. Isaac Rendo's out. Patrick Taylor Jr. starts. We're going to get a lot of questions about him, I'm pretty sure. The one I'm going to get the most, well, Trey Benson's out. I'm not going to get a lot of questions about him. Maybe DJ Dallas again behind James Conner. Maybe they have to promote somebody because Amari DeMarcado's out as well, and that somebody would be Michael Carter. Titans, Tony Pollard's questionable. He did not practice all week. He doesn't often practice. Hasn't practiced for like a month. But last week he was limping around a lot, and we saw a heck of a lot of Tyjae Spears. So maybe we see that again. And it's a mystery. So we'll have to wait. And it's an early kickoff, so you'll know, early Sunday kickoff anyway. So that's one to watch. It's going to be some tough questions. Tyjae Spears was great, had the touchdown equity last week, and that made him very popular. So it will have all eyes on him again this week. Braylon Allen's questionable. He practiced fully Friday. So I'm guessing this is going to continue to be a three-way split. Monday Night Football. Alvin Kamara has not practiced. He's not expected to play. Adam Schefter reporting that he's probably done for the year. That leaves Kendre Miller as a target of opportunity. I like him a little bit, right? He looks pretty tough, but the game script could be a problem. The offense led by Spencer Rattler this week, who will be the starter. I should have mentioned that one. Quarterback change, I guess, from Jay Kaner. If we're counting those guys, I guess we should, right? No offense, Saints fans. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I kind of like Kendre Miller a little bit as a target of opportunity, but again, the game script could be a problem. Roschon Johnson back. He'll be working in a little bit. Scott Kobe has a wish. Scott Kobe raking in the high stakes dollars out there, just coming off his birthday. Happy birthday again, Scott. Great to see you here. So that's the big running back question then becomes Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet, both of them off the injury report. And it's going to make for some tricky situations, right? I will say, I thought it was very interesting listening to Ryan Grove's press conference yesterday. It reminded me of the meme where the guy's walking down the street holding his girlfriend's hands, looking at the other girl. And it's like he's walking down the street with Zach Charbonnet holding his hand, looking back at Kenneth Walker and say, wow, he's really good. Makes these super high-end plays. Like just based on the conversation, they talked about the 4.3 speed and his ability to find cracks and crevices. I thought Charbonnet has been fantastic. You would think he's earned a little bit of a role. It's a tough Minnesota run defense, but it seems like Walker's like the primary guy. So this is going to be very, this is going to be a tough situation. I'm leaning Walker already. I know many of you have questions. I've seen many questions about him. I've heard many questions about him on the radio. I think right now you're setting your expectations. He goes from a high-end running back 2 or low-level running back 1 to a tail-end running back 2, and Charbonnet becomes a potential flex play. And I see questions, already kind of piling up there. And so like we'll get through them, but that's kind of where I stand. The rankings of them are where they are just because of there's some uncertainty. Like it could go either way, right? I think it's going to go the Walker way. That's what I think. Just like I think the Tennessee might go more Spears way. But honestly, we've seen Tony Pollard not practice for over a month. We heard Brian Callahan tell us last month he might not practice again this year. The difference was last week we saw him limping visibly during the game, and we saw Tyjae Spears get a bunch of work. So again, the infusion of uncertainty makes you look at other options. That doesn't mean Tony Pollard can't come out and have a fantastic game. Probably can. It's just how do you bank on it? What are your other options? These are the things we're going to try and work at. Wide receivers. Xavier Levigat is out, probably eating a raccoon somewhere. It's not me saying that. It's him. Jalen Coker and David Moore are questionable. Get your Thielen on, kids. Looks like it should be it's going against the Arizona Cardinals. Alec Pierce also out due to a concussion. Zare's guy, A.D. Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell needs to make some plays. But he's more of a DFS play. I think we're agreeing there, Zare. Tyreek Hill listed as questionable. I don't know if he's really questionable. He didn't practice on Wednesday, worked fully Thursday, then was limited Friday. There's listed with rest, wrist, personal. I mean, he's all over the place. I'm guessing he's going to play, but it's a late afternoon kickoff. So it's going to be some trickiness because there is also no Jalen Waddle. He's listed as doubtful. The Eskridge is also doubtful. So Malik Washington, Matt Waldman wrote a little bit about him as being a possible target of opportunity if you're in a pinch. I think he might be. Jonnu Smith, go. Devon Achane, go. That would be great. Appreciate that, Adonai. Let's see what else. We got some tight end issues, I'm sure. We got more wide receivers. Let me make sure I've gone through all these. Oh yeah, Cedric Tillman questionable. Seems like he's closer to playing. It's been 3 games he's been out with a concussion. T. Higgins off the injury report. Curtis Samuel is questionable. Who cares, right? I think we're at the who cares about Curtis Samuel point. I know Curtis cares, and probably the Bills care to some degree. I thought he had a catch last week. I think I saw that. That is correct. This is the truest comment I've seen. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. There you go. Let's get it. Let's get it, AD Mitchell. Zare's on the line here. And what else we got here? Chris Olave's working again. I don't know if we'll see him. You know, they think Darren Reese said he was like doubtful for this week, but it seems like he might be ready for week 17 or 18. I don't know why you would run him back into the fray, but hey, that's just me. David Njoku, also questionable. I think he's the only playable asset. Go check out my in and out column. I do think he's leaning towards playing. It's a great matchup against Cincinnati. Dorian Thompson-Robinson targeted him heavily last time. I think it was a 27% target share. So if I had to play a receiving asset for Cleveland this week, might be David Njoku if he plays. K. Dot, doubtful. He's not going to play. Zach Ertz is questionable. We talked about that in the questions. He has been working on a limited basis. They added a shoulder issue. But I think he needs final clearance on the concussion thing. It's just like Tillman, right? And they both could get cleared today. They could be cleared tomorrow as possible. The biggest question is, yes, there are a lot of questions about Jonathan Taylor right now, man. It's been a struggle. He was my out in my in and out column last week. Had he scored that touchdown, he probably still wouldn't have reached what his projected numbers were. It's been a struggle, right? He's got to score from distance because he's not getting goal line carries. Thanks, Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson guy. Anthony Richardson is my out this week quarterback. Not that I'm like, get the in and out, people. The in and out is not, the outs are not guys you can't play. It's just guys I think are going to come up short of expectations, right? And last week I was phenomenally brilliant in saying Jalen Hurts would not do that. And look what it got me. He was projected as quarterback 5. I projected he would not hit that number. He did not. He was quarterback 4. Like against the Steelers. So we talk about Lamar Jackson playing the Steelers today. He's traditionally had really lousy games against them, because they're very good. Only one quarterback prior to last week had 20 points. Joe Burrow had 20 points barely against this defense. I think 3 other quarterbacks hit like 15 points or more, and that was it on the year. And Lamar Jackson has struggled against them traditionally. So I get a lot of questions on the radio I have this week. Lamar I think it makes for tough decisions. Just like we're going to get some Jaden Daniels or Terry McLaurin I wrote Terry McLaurin's my out this week. Not because he only caught 1 pass for 10 yards against Quinyon Mitchell the last game, week 11. We have recent history, but also partly because of that, but just partly because it's a tough matchup, right? And so we're projecting guys in situations. And so Rachel and I were having a discussion this morning on the DMs about Chuba Hubbard being ranked ahead of Derrick Henry. And depending on which ranker you're looking at of football guys, the consensus ranking is Chuba Hubbard's well ahead of Derrick Henry. Not well ahead, but they're kind of in the same tier. I have them a little closer, but I still have Chuba Hubbard ahead. And even I look at that and I say, wow, do I really have the intestinal fortitude to do that? Now you look at the recent games, they both are coming off less than stellar games, right? So, these are the questions you start getting. I'm playing Lamar there. I mean, right? Like so I highlighted the Jalen Hurts instance for that reason. These high-end quarterbacks, you sit them at your own peril. And I didn't, my recommendation in the in and out, by the way, the first lines of the Jalen Hurts, don't bench Jalen Hurts. Also, maybe don't pay $8,000 for him on DraftKings. That turned out to be a wise decision too. See, that's my point. Like, we look at these matchups and when I write the in and out, I'm trying to leverage the matchups. Like I'm looking for where players are projected versus their matchups. And I'm trying to game the system. Right. And even at that, if I'm 500 for the week on those in and outs, my 9 picks, or if I'm close to if I'm 5-4 or 4-5, I'm pretty happy because I'm trying to be edgy with those, right? Trying to I don't know, intestinal fortitude. I think we all have that. All the Harrises. Najee too. He's my out at running back this week, not because I think he won't produce anything, but because he might have struggled. It was a struggle last game. I think we had one of his better games actually against this defense, but that's the point. Like we're trying to assess players who have traditionally been good in super tough matchups, turns out they can be great. Another thing that, and so like if you want an answer on the Chuba Hubbard or Derrick Henry, I suggested to Rachel something Mike Dempsey, my co-host on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Show and on the Daily Podcast. We've come to this decision, like when you have really hard decisions between 2 or 3 players and it's miserable to decide, because Rachel threw in, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Mike Evans is in that mix as well. Do you play Chuba or Derrick Henry, or do you move one of them to the flex over Mike Evans? And like, I can't sit there. I don't want to sit any of those guys. So, but you have to sit one, right? Mike Dempsey is saying you take pieces of paper, you write the names on them, you put them in a hat, you draw them. And if you pick the one you pick says, I'm not sure, you pick the other one. That's what it is. Like you listen to your gut in these cases, right? I think that's the key. And so here we get into, good morning, Steve. Like, so these are the kind of decisions you're making. And like, to me, like I'm out on Terry McLaurin and he had a 1-catch, 10-yard game against the Eagles last game. I don't think I would be able to sit him in favor of Rome Odunze. Like, I like Caleb Williams this week. The Minnesota matchup is phenomenal, but there are 3 other pieces, ostensibly, 2 other pieces eating into, that are going to split that up. And DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, who is my in at wide receiver this week, by the way, have been fantastic, right? So like if this was Terry McLaurin or Jalen McMillan, it would be a harder conversation for me. But Terry McLaurin is like the only game in town. Maybe that's part of his problem, but also it gives him that super high end upside. And I guess that's the question for me. I don't want to pass up on great players and great matchups any more than I want to pass up on great receivers with less than ideal quarterback situations. And let me remind you of the lesson I learned last week. I had Brian Thomas as my out. My final statement was that I put the matchup was daunting. The offense hasn't been great. Brian Thomas Jr. has been very good, maybe great. And that's like, as the guy who every year is standing on my soapbox shouting at the top of my lungs, don't dial back on great wide receivers who don't have great quarterbacks. Because the evidence there's a mountain of evidence saying that this is not the wise course. This year's best evidence is Marvin Harrison versus Malik Neighbors. We were drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. at the tail end of the early round 2, right? Malik Neighbors was going in round 4 because we were afraid of the quarterback and we love Kyler Murray. Well, maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe, and Matt Waldman, go listen to our podcast, our weekly podcast that I can't say on the air, or the name of on the air because it's vile and Joe Bryant would come whoop on me. But go check it out on our Twitter feed. He goes into depth in some of the flaws in Marvin Harrison's game, some of the areas he needs to improve that Malik Neighbors doesn't need to improve in. Like those guys were all at the top of the heap, but we were drafting guys at, unproven ceilings, basically, based more on the quarterback than on them. And so anyway, the point is on Brian Thomas Jr., my summation on that was also, I don't trust Mac Jones. Well, it doesn't matter. Brian Thomas Jr. turns out is emerging as a great player, right? And maybe you shouldn't fade him even in tough matchups and even when his quarterback isn't ideal. Like, I'm not fading Malik Neighbors this week. I'm not really fading Drake London this week. There's uncertainty at quarterback. I think the situation could be better, but there are some issues that we're going to have to worry about with Michael Penix. Matt Waldman highlighted some of those. Number one, as Matt framed it, he's going from a noodle-armed right-hander to a laser-armed left-hander, right? So Drake London, that's going to be an adjustment for him. Might be more drops. Might also be more big plays. Might also be more touchdowns. Might also be more yardage. Yeah, Matt Waldman liked Trey Sermon. He also liked Nick Chubb. Had him as his top-ranked running back, and that worked out well. Everyone has Mrs. Adam. It was a good comment. Earned a lot of respect there. So that's the point, right? Like, so we're making these tough decisions each week, and so like on the guys within the same tier, right? Like, and I think that's where we got at with Rachel is there's a point where we have to rank linearly, right? Like, we have to have one ahead of the other. We used to think of them as, you should think of players in tiers. So if you look at my rankings, you would see that I have, I'm going to say Chuba's like 9, and it's either 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. Either way, they're consecutive, right? So if there are players within tiers, it's perfectly fine to go with your gut. Like, and again, I could go through my hunch speech, but I think everyone's heard it here. Like, go with your hunch. Play the player you want to play. I'm not there Monday when the guy that you wanted to play, but you went with the guy I said to play, and your guy played better than the guy I said to play, and you're really mad at me, but really you should be mad at yourself. Play the guy you want to play. I'm sitting here having a conversation with you, explaining what I like about guys, why I might be back on them. Look, you're very smart people. You can take this knowledge and use it to triangulate with what you already know and what you feel about these players and put together a different perspective, your own perspective, right? That's the whole goal of all this. So there you have that. But yeah, players within tiers. And I would say Mike Evans is within that tier. Like I might play Evans over both of those guys. He needs 83 yards a game, and Baker Mayfield's talking about that, right? And I saw another comment in here about like a squeaky wheel. I saw I think Scott Kobe mentioned the squeaky wheel situation for DK Metcalf. I'm less into that, right? So like I'm less into Metcalf just because JSN's rising. I think look, it's a great matchup. Both of them could have success. It's tougher. It's weird. Minnesota's a tougher matchup for quarterbacks than they are for wide receivers, which seems odd, but it is true. So, but I think the difference between DK and JSN is like the target share hasn't been that wide. It's just let me bring up the numbers because I think I thought it was interesting when I looked at it over the last. Let's go 4 games, right? I hope I still have this up in my search of the wild. Yeah, let's see. Seattle weeks 15, 14, 13. Using my fantasy points data suite because I do love it. It's very good. If you don't get it, you should check it out. It's good stuff. Over the last 4 games, the target shares have not been that far off for those two. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I want to say, is at 21%. DK Metcalf's at 28%. 27 targets to 23. Jackson Smith and Jigba's turned his 27 targets into 25 catches for 316 yards and 2 touchdowns. DK's turned his 23 targets into 15 catches for 202 yards, 0 touchdowns. It just hasn't been a great 4-game run for him. Like I'm hoping he rebounds, and I hope they put a great effort into getting the ball back. But I have concerns. You're not crazy. Like this, I think Silas the Virus, I don't think that's totally crazy. Like I feel a little more comfortable with what the role is. And so here's where we're at. Right? Like, do you think Kenneth Walker comes back and takes the primary role in a tough matchup against the Minnesota run defense over the upside we've seen from Jackson Smith and Jigba over not just the last month, but over the last, I want to say 8 games, where he's risen up to become a solid weekly starter? Let's see where I don't want to overstate the case, but I want to state the case because I think that's an interesting situation. I mean, Walker in his first game back could be great. Like, and if you listen to what Ryan Grubb talked about with him, so Jackson Smith and Jigba, by the way, over the last 4, let's see, last 5 games, let's look at. I want to say he's wide receiver 13. I am incorrect. He's wide receiver 7 over the last 5 games. Over the last 8 games, he is wide receiver 6. I mean, that's pretty persistent. That's proven to be sticky, right? I'm probably saying he's a safer play. Why? Because we know what his role is right now. It's a great wide receiver matchup. Again, the quarterback matchup is tough, right? But Jackson Smith and Jigba has emerged as the primary weapon, downfield weapon in this offense by far. And so, no, it's not crazy. And I think like maybe it would be crazy if I was viewing Kenneth Walker. Wouldn't even be crazy then. If I was viewing Kenneth Walker as a locked-in running back 1 this week, I'm just not. There's uncertainty there. So until we get it sorted out, I think that's, so sometimes the questions are the answers, right? And I think Silas the Virus, you're basically answering your own question there. If you're concerned that Walker and Charbonnet could split carries, I think it's 100% true. I think they could. I don't know that they will, but we're sitting here trying to predict the future. And based on what we've seen of Charbonnet the last 2 games, it's been phenomenal compared to what we've seen with Walker. And I was talking to my buddy Michael Fabiano this morning. We were trying to suss through this one too. And he mentioned the Seahawks have a long tradition of just going back to the primary guy. Well, they did under Pete Carroll. This is a new coach, Mike McDonald, new regime. I think this is, so like, do they just go right back? Based on Ryan Grubb's comments, it sounds like they are. It sounds like they like Kenneth Walker better. They like his legitimate 4.3 speed was mentioned and his ability to break off big plays. I don't know. I saw Zach Charbonnet do a little bit of that too. So But I think that's the point, right? If we're sitting here assessing things, and this is what we're doing, we're predicting the future. We're taking the information we have at hand. We're trying to downplay our fears, which is totally impossible to totally downplay, right? That's part of our equation. We're sitting here and like our concerns are part of this equation. What can we live with if we screw up? Is part of the equation. How can I live with myself if I play like Chuba Hubbard over Derrick Henry and Derrick Henry goes off for one of his patented 3 touchdown games? Like I was talking to Jeremy Kahn, a local radio guy in Baltimore last week, and he called it Dehember. You know, December is Derrick Henry's month. That's when the Titans like rolled the hardest with him. Is it possible the Ravens want to preserve him more for the postseason? Sure. It's entirely possible. Did we see the start of that last week, or was that what was it? Just the game was out of hand. They didn't need him as much. These all help inform our questions, right? And make things difficult for us. So anyway. Let's go back and look at some questions because I did have some highlighted. So I discussed this one pretty much at length. I think we sussed that out, right, Levi? I hope we have. So here's one: Keenan Allen or McMillan, Terry Scary. And I know there are a lot of questions about these. So Marco, we'll kind of use this as an example. And I hope you all understand I can't get to every question. So I use some of these ones where I see a lot of questions about the same situation. Then I pick one and I try and highlight it. So if I'm not like exactly explaining your precise situation, I think I'm explaining the principles or at least the thoughts behind what I'm trying to do here or why I'm dial back on someone. So again, sometimes the question is the answer. Terry scares him, right? And like, so I get it. And there should be some concern. As I mentioned, Terry McLaurin is my out this week. Look, it's not just that. If you go read Devin Knotts and Justin Howe's passing matchups at Football Guys, talk about a little bit about this matchup in general. Jaden Daniels it's not been as great the last 5 games as it was prior as a passer. This is a super tough matchup. And the last game, which was week 11, not that long ago, McLaurin had 1 catch for 10 yards. Do I think he's going to get held to that again? I think that's very hard. He's a very good player. Also, he's a big play kind of guy, right? Terry McLaurin. So with 1 or 2 big plays, he could make all your concerns go away. I don't know that he's going to get all those big plays. So Keenan Allen is a player I'm in on this week. If you look at, I do the in and out by position, 1 in, 1 out. And again, out does not mean I'm all the way out. So yes, I'm playing Terry McLaurin. In fact, in one of my playoff games this week, I'm playing Terry McLaurin because I don't have better options. So the question is, do I think Keenan Allen or Jalen McMillan are better options? Jalen McMillan over the last 2 games is wide receiver 11. He's had a 20+% target share. He scored, I think, a minimum of 18 points. I think it's 18 and 20 something or low 20s. And Mike Evans having big games hasn't slowed him down. Mike Evans is wide receiver 8 over those last 2 games, right? So you're playing with Baker Mayfield. There's a lot to like about Jalen McMillan. It's just a narrower band of success, right? I mean, we've been hoping. Part of the equation, too, is like Jalen McMillan was one of those hit guys, right? The guys that we were kind of keen on going into the season, and it hadn't come about. Then we saw Mike Evans and Chris Godwin go down, and here comes Jalen McMillan, except no, it wasn't him. It was somebody else every week. It was Kate Otten more than it was Jalen McMillan. But now it is. And sometimes, look, situations evolve. So you trust that 2-game sample in a plus matchup against the Cowboys? Maybe you do. Keenan Allen, since Thomas Brown took over as play caller, has been, I want to say, wide receiver 20. I could verify that with a simple glance at my notes, which would probably be wise in this case if I'm sitting around touting the situation. Crazy. You would think I would have things ready and be prepared for this question. I kind of am. Okay, so since the change of coordinators, Keenan Allen has 29% target share. DJ Moore, he's right up there. Moore has been done a little more with his. He's wide receiver 10 over the last 5 games. But Allen is wide receiver 13 in the 5 games since Thomas Brown took over as play caller. He has 4 touchdowns over the past month. Has more than 20 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. Like, that seems pretty persistent to me as well, right? So And then this week they go against Detroit. Do you think this might be a shootout? We've got a defense that's been beat to hell and lost 2 more cornerbacks last week. There's a 26th ranked pass defense. Both of these guys, by the way, in week 13 they last played. Both these guys scored 20 points. DJ Moore and Keenan Allen both scored over 20 fantasy points in that game. So yeah, it's not crazy, right? And I think that's like the basis of most questions. And so if this question is, Terry scares me, well, then Keenan Allen and Jalen McMillan are viable options. If you want to play, to me, the one with more history, it's Keenan Allen. And Jalen McMillan, the more recent history that's been heavily touchdown based. Here's another one stuck between McMillan. So let's talk about Dorian Thompson-Robinson while we're hashing these things out. I think it's not been good, right? Thompson-Robinson completed 44.1% of his passes for 100 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions in 2 appearances this season. Last year, he started 3 games as a rookie, completed 53% of his passes, 440 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. So in 3 career starts, he's averaged 140 passing yards and 1 passing touchdown per game. Like, my expectations are lowered a little bit. And by the way, I mentioned David Njoku. So if you're like looking for a receiving asset there in the games that they played last year, Matthew Berry pointed this out this week. Thompson-Robinson has thrown into Njoku's target share is 27%, and he's had double-digit fantasy points. So sometimes the tight end is a young quarterback's best friend. Maybe in this case, that's true as well. So I'm like dialed back on Judy a little bit. So there's that. Lots of McMillan questions. Lots of McMillan questions. Anthony Richardson, Drake Mayer, Caleb Williams against an injured Lions defense. I'd probably lean to an injured Caleb Williams. The football guy's consensus is Anthony Richardson. That's not mine. Richardson is my out this week, and you all know I've been the biggest supporter of Anthony Richardson. But I think the Tennessee Titans defense has been way tougher lately. You got tons of turnovers. I could read you the litany of numbers, but they are impressive over the last 4 games, including multiple pick sixes. And just the numbers are down a little bit. I know Zari's wanting to play A.D. Mitchell. I'm not as keen on Richardson this week. But here's the thing about Richardson. He's still a swing for the fence play, right? Like, the rushing equity makes him that. I would lean Williams. And like, I'm out on Richardson, but I'm not all the way out. I just don't know that he's going to finish as a quarterback 1 this week. Why? Because he's only done it 3 times all year. Shakir over Kupp earlier based on your rankings. So in Kupp's case, so I think this is interesting because I do like Khalil Shakir an awful lot. And I think he's been coming on, right? He's definitely the primary target. Definitely the primary target for, I mean, like, in a sea of targets. Seems like Josh Allen has a lot of targets, but also Josh Allen's very good. It seems like Shakir is the most reliable of them, right? But like, if we're worried about Cooper Kupp versus Shakir, I think we're only looking at last week. Like, like, I feel like, no, McMillan not over them, right? Like, I think McMillan on the football guys consensus rankings and projections is outside the top 36. I like him just inside the top 36, right? Like, I don't know that I need to expect him to put up that high-end production every single week if I have more reliable options. I think Kupp and Shakir are both more reliable options. Maybe they don't have the same upside. I think this is a Kupp rebound game. So I'm probably playing Cooper Kupp here. I don't, there's a reason he has only been shut out once since 2019. It's hard to shut him out, right? And I think this is, I'm expecting a rebound for him this week. That doesn't mean Puka Nacua goes away or anything like that. It just means that like don't look, so this is I think this is a great example because this is like how my mind tends to work. Like, wow, Kupp was horrible last week. I want to avoid that. McMillan's been great for 2 weeks. I want to play that. So, meanwhile, Shakir's been really good. There are ups and downs, but he's been pretty solid. But extend that bigger picture, right? Look at a broader swath of information. Cooper Kupp's goodness has extended over the course of multiple seasons. And even with Puka Nacua having great games, Cooper Kupp still has pretty damn good games. I'm probably playing it safe there. Cooper Kupp, I think, is a safe play, even though he had a 0 last week. I know. See? Even safe plays can fall through. Need more coffee. Hey, Dr. Krilla. Jackson Smith-Njigba I was talking about, or Nico Collins. I'm playing Nico Collins in this one. Chiefs have a good pass rush. They're great against the run. I'm a little worried about Joe Mixon. Am I worried about Joe Mixon so much that I won't start him? No, but I'm lower than him on the consensus rankings of Football Guys, where he's running back 7, I think, or 8. I have him just outside my top 12. I think I have him 13 or 14. 14 he may have moved to this morning. Why? Because he's like average 2 yards a carry over the last handful of games. The Texans are locked in to their postseason berth, and the Chiefs' run defense is super tough. So, but anyway, I digress. Nico Collins has been super good. And, even when he only catches 2 passes, apparently they're going to be touchdowns. Like, I feel like this might be a little bit more of a swing for the fence versus high floor. If you just need a high floor play, and these are things you have to decide as you look at your opponent's lineup, look at the projected scores for both sides. Do I just need a really solid game? Do I need to avoid a Cooper Kupp-esque goose egg this week? Not that he's going to give you one of those, but last week's goose egg, it put you in a hole, right? That Thursday night game, you were in a hole and you were playing from behind, and you had to look at your lineup differently the rest of that week. Is like, oh my God, like let's say you did that last game. Well, Jackson Smith-Njigba has been great. He does score touchdowns. Nico Collins is maybe more of a swing for the fence play that might get me multiple touchdowns. So might Jackson Smith-Njigba. I mean, he does have 7 on the year. I think that's more of a Nico Collins, by the way, is ranked ahead of Jackson Smith-Njigba on the Football Guys rankings. On my rankings, I would play him. But I think if you just needed like a really solid floor, I think that's the place where I'd consider Jackson Smith-Njigba in these circumstances. I've kind of talked about Metcalf and the confidence I have for going forward. It's not great. I need to see something. It's been over a month since his return from injury that it hasn't been high end, and Jackson Smith-Njigba has seemed to have overtaken him. Look, DK Metcalf's a good player. We might get a spike game at any time, maybe against Minnesota, who is super generous to opposing wide receivers, right? But I kind of need to see it before I'm buying it. So here we go. Mixon, Jennings, or JSN. I think all those guys are like right within the same range. If you look at my current flex rankings, I have JSN and Jennings ahead of Mixon. Why? Because I have both those guys as wide receiver 1s or tail end wide receiver 1s, and I have Mixon right outside my running back 1s. So, but I think it's all very close. They're all like within a point or 2 of each other in projections. So this is one where you put the names in the hat, you draw them out, and if you go, nah, I don't really want to play that guy, you'd be perfectly fine. They're all in the same tier. So, Charles, I guess my suggestion would be, like, if it was me, I would probably play JSN in this case. If it was me. If it was you, you might think, man, but Joe Mixon scores all these touchdowns and he has these really great spike games, and I just don't know if I can sit that. That would be perfectly fine, right? It's not my expectation, but it could be yours. I always talk about this going into drafts. We tell ourselves happy stories to select the guys we want where we select them. We tell ourselves horror stories about the players we want to dial back on. I mean, we kind of do that whenever we're making our week-to-week lineup decisions. And so, I tend to dwell on the negative aspects of Joe Mixon without looking at the positives in this case, because why? Last few games haven't been great, and I can see circumstances why they wouldn't force their hand. That doesn't mean Mixon can't be good old Joe that was like killing it over the first 2 months of the season, right? First 3 months of the season almost. So yes, I'm slightly into JSN. I would probably go Jennings over Mixon as well, but Jennings is coming off a bad game too. So plenty to ponder there, but that's kind of where we're at, Charles. So here's one that's interesting because it's a guy who we haven't seen all year versus a guy who's had 2 great games. I think in this case, I'm taking the guy with 2 great games because I don't know what to expect from Hollywood Brown, right? Like, to me, he's, and I think the rankings reflect that at Football Guys. He's the number 4 on the list of wide receivers for the Chiefs in this game. Does that mean he can't have a huge touchdown play? He's very fast. Can outrun just about everyone on the field except Xavier Worthy, so his own teammate. So sure, it's possible. It's not what my expectation would be. I would play McMillan easily in this one based on the previous 2 games where he had a huge role. Kate Otten is not playing. It's a great matchup. All those things would come into play. But Hollywood Brown, I need to see it before I believe it. Part of this would be me thinking, wow, look at the way they've kind of slow rolled, or they continue to slow roll Pacheco back in the offense. Like, it was a 50-50 split with Hunt last week. I mean, Pacheco arguably looks way better than Kareem Hunt, or we've seen him have some long runs and be a little more dynamic. Yet still, they want to, and I think part of the reasoning is they're they've got an eye on the postseason, right? They want to win now for sure. That's why Patrick Mahomes is playing. You know, that week, that bye and the playoff bye is important to them, I think, just to get healthier. But also home field and all those things. So I don't know that I would expect huge things. This is another interesting one. Madison versus Abdullah, right? Both against Jacksonville. I mean, it's a pretty even argument to me. Like Abdullah in the games he's been the lead back has 13 or more carries on. I think I want to say he's averaged 13 carries, 13.1. Abdullah looks like a more dynamic part of the passing game. The Jacksonville Jaguars are like 24th in the league against the run. They're really bad against passing. You know, they've given up a lot of yards to passing to receiving backs. Like I think you could play both. I'm leaning Madison just because I feel like he's the primary back here or going to serve as the primary back and probably get that 10 plus opportunities. And I don't know that Abdullah will, but I think they're both in the same range. They're both like in, you know, running back 3 flex level plays to me. Sacramento Brown instead of Hollywood. Toronto Dave in the house. Good to see you, man. Merry Christmas, everybody. Pick 2. Neighbors and Cup. That was easy. Agree with that. Let's see what else we got. Whew, a lot of questions. And like we're almost through the hour. Like it goes fast. In case you're just dialing in, hi, I'm Bob Harris. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. In case you missed the hat, I have a Santa hat. There you have it. It is Christmas time. Not the night before, but almost there. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you all for coming. There will be no live stream on Tuesday night. No hot seat. Nobody wants to get on the hot seat on Christmas Eve. I mean, they might, but I'm not going to put them there because nobody wants to come listen to that on Christmas Eve. You should be doing things with your family. That's what I'll be doing because Christmas Day will be a work day. So there will be a radio show on Christmas Day. Me and Justin Fensterman, 8 to 11 Eastern time. Also a radio show tonight, 8 to 11 p.m. on SiriusXM NFL and the Fantasy Channel. I think going forward, NFL Radio will be playing games on Saturdays. Oh, no, tonight we're only on the Fantasy Channel. So once the games start, NFL Radio plays the games. They got contractual obligations, so we're just on the Fantasy Channel. It's okay. We'll be there. Tara Roberts from Yahoo will be our fantasy guest. Jamie Calandro will come on and talk DFS. We'll answer a ton of questions, more questions like this. Thank you for that. It does fly by. It goes super fast. It's crazy. Again, go check out all my articles at footballguys.com. The fantasy notebook is all free. I'll outline all the quarterback situations, some good running back information, just some good numbers and tidbits. It's free every Thursday, available to you. Then also my polarizing players article. It's a collaboration with Gary Davenport, the great Gary Davenport. I love doing that. We kind of sort through some situations where, you know, some of the questions you're asking are answered in that article. Also my in and out, where I do some logic-based hot takes. And again, out doesn't mean I'm not playing them, people. Read the words carefully. Read the words carefully. Like, especially when I write, don't bench this guy. But these are nuanced conversations, people. That's what I love about this. You come in here, and I know you have either or questions. I'm glad to see you. Like, come in. Like, I do like this one, right? Like, Patrick Taylor, because I haven't discussed him with Isaac Garendo out. Thank you, Toronto Dave, for this question. Oh, and there's another one. Patrick Taylor or Kendre Miller. Or Patrick Taylor and Patrick Taylor and Patrick Taylor. A lot of Patrick Taylors for the reason why. Here's why, like, and the Patrick Taylor versus Kendre Miller might be the better question. I would probably, you know, I think Kendre Miller is more likely to get the Alvin Kamara role than Patrick Taylor is to get the McCaffrey / Mitchell / Garendo / Mason role. Like, I don't know that Patrick Taylor is that guy, right? We've talked about it with Mike Cash on the hot seat a couple weeks ago, where he mentioned, like, you know, he's not the super speedy one cut and go guy. Like, Israel Abanikanda is more that guy, right? Here we go. Patrick Taylor. Oh, Jerome Ford is the only answer here, Scampers. Everyone knows that. Jerome Ford going up against the 4th most generous run defense in the league with a new quarterback. I would easily play him. But this, and I'm like, I lean Miller over Patrick Taylor. But like, if you're looking at it and you're arguing for Patrick Taylor, the argument is it's probably a better offense in San Francisco than it is in New Orleans, even if it's not the San Francisco offense of old and there's no Trent Williams and like a lot of the things that we love. And Deebo Samuel is like trying to not be Deebo Samuel. I think there's a lot of, clearly the Saints were down to Spencer Rattler time. And, it's been a mess, right? So we're down to Marquez Valdez-Scantling as your wide receiver one. And Taysom Hill's gone. Your secret weapon is gone. So I probably like Kendre Miller a little more because I like the role a little more. But the argument that they're like 14-point underdogs in Green Bay is part of it. Is Kendre Miller have a big enough role in the passing game? Well, I'm thinking if he takes up that Alvin Kamara role, he will. So I rank these guys Ford, Miller, Taylor, and again, Taylor is currently the lead back in this offense. Every single one of these backs that have come into this offense have put up running back 2 or better numbers any given Sunday. So, and he's well versed. I know, I think Sigma Bloom wrote about this. He did spend 3 years with the Packers, so he knows this offense well. The Matt LaFleur offense basically being an offshoot of the McVay Shanahan style offense. So it was a very good point. Very good point. Lamar, Darnold, or Darnold. So this is like a close enough one where I think this is going to be, you have to live with yourself, Javier. Right? Like, do I feel comfortable telling you to bench Lamar Jackson even in the toughest matchups? I do not. Sam Darnold's been playing great, though. I like his matchup better. I still have Lamar ranked ahead of him, but not by much. I mean, it's like very close. Just to give you an idea, what are the football guys, just the raw projection numbers? Let me bring those up because I think it bears, noting what the separation between these guys is. Lamar Jackson is our quarterback 2 in the raw projections, projected to have 23.42 points. Sam Darnold, 18 points. He is our quarterback 10. So Josh Allen, 25 points is quarterback 1. Quarterback 2 is 23 points. Quarterback 3 is Jalen Hurts with 22 points. Joe Burrow, 21 points. Jaden Daniels, 19 points. Baker Mayfield, 19 points. Kyler Murray, 19 points. Anthony Richardson, 18 points. So you see there's a really narrow band here. I mean, we're and to pretend that we can predict the future with that level of granularity, I mean, we do a great job. I'm not telling you that it's not worthwhile because you need these starting points to work with, but you can expect there to be some variance just based on the fact that they play with an oblong spheroid that's designed to bounce funny ways. That's your starting point. Crazy stuff happens every week. So again, the Lamar or Darnold, 2 guys in the same tier, both in the top 10. If you have a hunch, you should play your hunch. You should be comfortable playing your hunch. Don't play my hunch on that one. I would play Lamar over Darnold. I would. If it was my decision, because I do not have the wake up Monday morning, and will I not wake up on Monday morning saying, damn it, I should have known Darnold was going to have a better game? Yes. But to the level that I would do it if it was Lamar, no. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate y'all coming in. Daniels did a tough matchup. I'm probably leaning Murray in that one for that same reason. Easily Kyler for me. Thank you, Mr. Scamper. Thank you, Rade. Robinson Jr. There was a question on those other ones. It was Brian Robinson Jr. was the answer on the other one. Brian Robinson. So Kenneth Walker. I'd probably play Kenneth Walker in this case. It's a tough matchup for Brian Robinson, but he'd be next. Calvin Austin worth a what the heck flex? Yes, caught all 5 of his targets last week, but a what the heck flex, not a force in the mix. Probably slightly into Goff over Love, but it's very close. Merry Christmas from the cat things. More cats. Lots of cats on the shirt. All right. What else do we have? Can I get a few more in here? Probably so. C's voice. Stay frosty. How was that? Was that all right? That was pretty good. Do I lose my love because of the snow Monday night? It depends on your options, Mark, honestly. And two things about this Packers offense real quick. Jordan Love's been playing better. Josh Jacobs is helping him. This offense is going to run through Josh Jacobs. This is what Matt LaFleur wanted the day he showed up in Green Bay. A super powerful running back, power back who could keep his offense on schedule and let his quarterback make big plays, right? That's where we're at. And it also makes for kind of a whack-a-mole situation at wide receiver. Somebody's going to have a big game. Your guess is as good as mine as to who it's going to be any given week, because it doesn't seem to be a lot of logic. There doesn't seem to be I've asked beat writers, are there coverages that, favor players? And yes, there are, but it seems like that whoever is open is making the plays, right? It's a kind of a Tom Brady situation. Like, who are you throwing to? The open guy. So Christian Watson seems to have come on lately until Romeo Doubs did it last week, until Jaden Reed does it again with another big game at some point, or Dontavian Wicks comes out of nowhere, or Tucker Kraft has a 2-touchdown game. It seems like it's a whack-a-mole. That doesn't mean so. Love has been, I think the rushing attack has helped Love. I think he's been better last couple of weeks. Hasn't reached last year's levels yet, so I'm not enthusiastic. I would be looking at a lot of options. He's at the tail end of my quarterback one rankings this week. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Let me see if I missed some questions in here. Dame had a question I wanted to get to. Oh, I'm probably playing ETN in this one. DeAndre Hopkins would be next. Bigsby would be right there. That's impossible. Tua versus San Francisco, or A. Richardson versus Tennessee. I'm probably playing Richardson in that case. Probably playing Jonnu Smith. These are very hard questions. I appreciate you all asking them. All right, that's it. I'm going to get out of here. Again, I'm sorry if I can't get to all the questions. If I didn't get to your questions, here's what you do. Bob is almost best. Second best to all of you. You're all great. I appreciate you all. So if I didn't get to your question, you can call my radio show tonight, Football Diehards, on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, 8 to 11 p.m. Tara Roberts from Yahoo will be joining us. Also, Jamie Calandra to talk DFS. Also, I believe I want to say it's the Bears Lions is our game of the week. That's possible. Or maybe not. What is it? I don't know. Anyway, there'll be a game of the week. We'll have a couple of beat writers on for that game. And also, you can hear me every day on the Football Guys Daily Update podcast. You're all too kind. Merry Christmas to everybody. Appreciate y'all coming. So catch me on the radio Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll be off Monday night this week, but I'll be on Wednesday, Christmas night this coming week. No live stream on Tuesday. Radio on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, usual stuff. Daily Update podcast next week will be all normal every morning at 5:30 a.m. I think next week, week 17, will be the last week of the every morning thing, and then we'll kind of do spot stuff over the course of the off season. So we'll appreciate you coming for that. But if I didn't answer your question, call the radio show. There's another live stream tomorrow, the Sunday morning, the pregame live stream. So you can get questions in there. Also, I'll be on the radio tomorrow with Jeff Mans, 11 to 1 p.m. So, and also hit the Game Day Inactives. Game Day updates page for Football Guys is fantastic. It's what I have up in my face while I'm doing the radio. And we're in touch behind the scenes and going through all the stuff. It's great. So also go look at the rankings. Everybody's rankings. My rankings are there. You can dial down to my rankings. You can look at consensus rankings. You can look at the raw projections. You can compare them with each other, various staffers you trust more than other staffers. However, if you have different opinions than those people, go with your opinion. It's okay, right? You're very knowledgeable. I can tell by the questions you're asking. It's fantastic. Love you all. Appreciate you. Hope you have a great Christmas. I'll be back here next Saturday on the live stream. So be here for that. And I'll try to answer more questions, but maybe not. We'll see. I don't know. And we'll leave with a happy note. Yes. So Braylon Allen probably droppable at this point. Could have a big game at any time, but reliable, playable. And we're at that point, people. We're at that point. If you have Breece Hall, I'd probably hang on to Braylon Allen. But, man, you can start shedding guys like that to dial in and try to make sure you have handcuffs and things like that. Anyway, Merry Christmas. I'll see you next week. Listen to me tonight if you so desire, or tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.